You are listening to the IFH Podcast Network. For more amazing filmmaking and screenwriting podcasts, just go to ifhpodcastnetwork.com.
Welcome to the Successful Screenwriter Podcast, where we discuss anything and everything screenwriting. Here we interview successful screenwriters and filmmakers to find out just what it takes to make it in the industry. Just a heads up, this episode is brought to you by my book, The Guide for Every Screenwriter, which has been listed as one of the best screenwriting books of all time by the Book Authority. If you're looking for something that reveals the secrets of screenwriting in an easy to understand and engaging way, then this is the book for you. You can find The Guide for Every Screenwriter at thesuccessfulscreenwriter.com/books or wherever books are sold. Now, on to the show. All right, welcome to the podcast. We have on such a cool guest today, the author of The Screenwriter's Mindset, Jeanne Veillette Bowerman. Jeanne, thanks for being on with us.
I'm really excited to be here.
So there's a subtitle to this book, which I think is absolutely hysterical. It's called Balls of Steel. Do you want to give me a little bit about that?
When I started writing at Script Magazine in 2011, I had to come up with a title for my column, and the first article I wrote was called Pursuit of the Project, and it was about how I got the adaptation gig for Slavery by Another Name, which won a Pulitzer Prize and blah, blah, blah.
Wow, okay.
And it took Balls of Steel. And that line came up in the article when I was writing it. And I thought, you know what? That's the title of my column.
That's
and
awesome.
So my column is called Balls of Steel. And it actually turned into, as you see from the book, that it actually turned into a column that was not what I expected it to be. I wanted to write all about how it takes, chutzpah to make it in this industry. You can't give up and blah, blah, blah. And it turned into sort of like a lot of really personal takes on stuff. Like I decided early on that I was going to just be super honest about everything and not gaslight people. And I wasn't a professional screenwriter, so I was my reader. Right. So I was like taking you through my experience and being super honest and letting you learn from my mistakes. And it was a lot of fun that way,
I think it's great. I think the honest approach you have to it, it has a bit of charm to it, and it really resonates with the reader. And seeing kind of you go through that journey is really amazing, because there is a lot of gaslighting, or even the opposite of like negative bullying in the industry. And these are all things that I've personally kind of had a mission to fight against. And so I have a comfort finding your work and seeing everything that you're doing. Like, yes, this is somebody who gets it and is legit. Now, we just got a little bit of your origin story. I like to get my guests' origin story. So if you want to, briefly build upon that and what kind of brought you into the path of screenwriting, to Script University and to Pipeline, I think our listeners would love to hear it.
Yeah, I mean, my path was sort of different. I went to Cornell Hotel School. I ran a motel and restaurant for 15 years. I didn't have this, I didn't get an MFA. But when I was 19 and I was at Cornell, I was taking a writing course, and my writing instructor took me out to lunch. And this was when quiche was cool. And
it was cool, really?
It was in the 80s. It was cool. and so with big hair, I probably have a picture of myself like that too.
That's awesome.
But he just said to me, what the hell are you doing in the hotel school? Like, you're a writer, like you need to be a writer. And I remember looking at him aghast and just saying, why would anyone want to read anything I have to say? Like, I was so insecure. And my dad was a writer, not professionally, but I guess he was. He wrote a column in our local newspaper for $10 awesome. A week.
Oh, that's cool.
But he always wanted me to be a writer.
Oh, wow.
But I just couldn't visualize what that would look like. How do you make money doing that? Like I didn't even understand what that means. I was 19. Like, what if, right? So I just stayed in the path. But so at some point after I turned 40, okay, so now we're talking age here. I was like, what am I doing with my life? Like, I'm a stay-at-home mom, but I don't feel, maybe
Yeah.
I should try that writing thing. And I started writing a novel, one of my friends from college said, oh, write a screenplay, it's easier. I basically got Screenwriting for Dummies and thought, okay, how tough could this be? And I don't think I realized how tough it was until I was years into it and really started. I maintain it takes about 8 years to learn how to really write a screenplay. Very different art form, you know?
I agree.
Yeah. And so in that course, I sort of, got this adaptation gig, and then Script Magazine found me and asked me to write for them. And then I ended
Awesome.
up running Script Magazine for 10 years. And so I got so caught up in the business and making
Yeah.
money, like as a job, that my writing, like I would still do my writing and stuff, but it was so much harder to focus on it. I write articles, do interviews for pipeline artists, which is where I work now.
I have a question
Yeah.
for you because
Yeah.
you led me into this segue.
Mhm.
It's really about balancing writing and life, because I'm terrible at
Mm.
I'm terrible at this. I'm going to come out and say it. I'm awful at it.
Me
Running
too.
WeFixYourScript.com and the Script Summit Screenplay Contest, and then this podcast and my book, and like I have all of these different things, and then I'm still, doing screenwriting and working with clients. Time for me disappears in an instant. And it sounds like that was something that you were kind of dealing with when you were at Script University. I don't know if you're dealing with it now.
I kind of want to ask you a question. Don't you kind of find that the more ideas you come up with even more? Like I almost feel like when you're a busy person, coming up with all these other things I want to do too. So it like makes it
Yeah.
even harder, you know?
I think right now I'm in the act of pruning, because
Good.
I've run out of time, and I still have to balance family with it. So
Yeah.
I think I love the old saying, if you want to get something done, give it to somebody who's busy.
Yes.
Because they'll work it into their schedule and they'll get it done. And I think that's exactly true. So
Yeah.
I'm at the point now, Jeanne, where I'm looking for interns, and I'm dead serious. If you want to be involved in this show, if you want to be an intern, contact successfulscreenwriter@gmail.com, or you can even click the contact button at the very bottom of our website on the footer. I am not kidding. And I will interview you, because I'm that busy now where I have to bring help on.
Yeah.
But I think that's a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm always haunted by this. I say yes too much. Like I'm on town committees, and I'm like, I mean, I definitely like take on way too much.
Oh, wow.
But then I get tortured with this thing my father used to always say.
What?
A Veillette always keeps their promise. So
Oh, okay.
that's painful to live with, because if I've said yes, I will do something, I can't wrap my brain around saying, okay, I'm tapping out.
I'm with you.
Yeah. And when I'm on a committee and other people start tapping out, I'm like, what are you doing?
Last woman standing.
Even if it means I'm burning in hell.
Now, do you ever resent saying yes then?
Okay, so here's the thing. When we talk about balance of writing and life and your art, whatever, what I try to do is when somebody asks me something, I ask myself before I open my mouth and just say yes, I ask myself, if I say yes, will I resent this? And will I resent this person? And because I specifically don't want to resent the person who asked me, because then that's just now become a toxic relationship.
Right.
Nobody needs that.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah. So I tried to take a breath, a pause. The other thing that might be good for people with a disease to please, because I find a lot of artists have that. Give yourself the 24-hour rule. You don't have to answer right away. Say, I'll get back to you tomorrow. I've got to look at my schedule, whatever. And then it's okay to say no. Like, no one died from hearing the word no. Like, it's okay.
The disease to please. I love how you put that, because that is very true. I find myself pushing myself pretty far to help. I get people email me, or they'll try and slide into my DMs from, I'm not kidding, around the world, asking for help. And I want to help people. I'm not the guy that's just doing this for, you know, fame or notoriety or money. I'm doing this because I want to help people. So I have, and I get to talk with people. I just like this little free consultation thing with people, but it gets to the point where it's like, okay, you know, is this too much of my time? Am I going to start resenting this? And so I have to keep it in check. And that's when I start going, okay, I'm going to cut down how many hours I offer, how many days a week, because there is an element of self-care that I think we as screenwriters with our screenwriting spidey senses tend to get lost in.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, and you know, one of the things we do at Script Pipeline is we do these little 15-minute free calls with writers.
Yeah.
But it's 15 minutes, like hard stop, 15 minutes. So I think if you can find, I think writers really love helping other writers just intuitively. I think, you know, I really haven't met a lot of holes. Like, can I swear? Can I swear?
I guess we are now.
Okay. Okay. I'm sorry. I really haven't met a lot of selfish writers. When I learn something, you know, if I've made a big, huge mistake, I'll write about it and tell people, like, don't do this.
Yeah.
You know, because when you remember that moment when you wrote your first script and you typed fade out, you know, and then you're so excited. Like, I remember I printed mine off. It was warm from the printer. I'm holding it in my hand. I was so excited. And then all of a sudden I was like, now what? Now what am I supposed to do with this? You know, like, so I thought to myself, there's a million people out there asking that same question.
Right.
So maybe the way I did, and I also believe there's no one way to break in. Every single writer who broke in had their own path.
Yeah.
And especially the way the industry is now, it's changing so much that no one can sit there and say, you must go to film school. You must do A, B, C, and D.
Yeah.
Like, no, there's not. I've been to pitch meetings with the president of HBO and, you know, at all these different studios out in LA. Not one person asked me if I have an MFA. Not one.
I hear you. I don't have a degree either. They care if you can write. They care if you're great to work with. So when you see people go like, that's such a terrible script, how did it get made? Well, they were probably like a great person to work with, but screenwriting wise, they just might not be there.
I tweeted out the other day, Len Amato from HBO, meeting with him, with the Pulitzer Prize winning author. I mean, that did get me in a lot of doors. I got to say, it was a great, if you have a really good project, it helps you build your network. Of course. And even if it doesn't get made, you know, timing is also a big thing in this industry. But anyway, we're at a meeting with him in a bar in Manhattan, and we're drinking bourbon, and he said the best piece of advice ever. He's like, look, I don't know if we're going to make this. He goes, I want to read it. I want my staff to read it. So send it to us. He said, but this business is about relationships, and it's not about this project. So say we read it and we know we like your writing. I want to have you in our circle so that a project might come up and say, you know, who'd be really good for this? Jeannie would be really good for this.
That's awesome.
You know, he's like, so it's not about this project. It's about the next project and the next project and potential projects you haven't even thought of.
You talk about in your book, as long as you're in the game, there's still a chance. And I agree with that, because I don't believe in luck. I believe in hard work. I believe in being tenacious, or as you would say, balls of steel. And so that's what I think you make your luck happen through, like we just said, networking, through finding opportunity and mastering the craft, because you could be a great guy to work with, so could another screenwriter. But if your work outshines theirs, then you're already guaranteeing yourself a better place in someone's mind.
When I was doing the book, it was a compilation of a lot of my articles, and then I wrote a few extra ones, but it was really interesting to go back and look at 10 years of my life of
Mm,
writing. And was I really where I wanted to be as a writer? I mean, professionally in my day job, I am. I
right.
super, super, super love working at Pipeline because they're like you and me, they're very much all about helping writers,
Yeah.
and literally never, like it's really about that. And so when I was looking back and putting these articles together to compile the book, it made me kind of realize I need to find that balance. Like, I need to, giving advice and helping people is great, but at some point you have to help yourself.
Yeah.
And
I think you're right.
that's when I made the decision. Yeah, that when I put the book together, that's when I made the decision. I'm not following my own advice. And I need to now decide what I want as a writer and what I'm willing to sacrifice to get it.
Isn't that something? I mean,
Yeah.
the fact that you're self-aware of that is beautiful, because that it can feel against our nature, especially like you said, we want to help other writers because we know how brutal this path is.
Mhm.
When I first came into the game, it was over 15 years ago, and back then, like if you wanted to get help on a chat board back then, people were rude, people were mean, they would tell
Mm.
you it wasn't worth it, they would make fun of your work and say it was garbage and say you never had a chance. I mean, I and so then I paid somebody and they told me, well, you don't even have a chance in hell. And this was when I had a decent script, by the way, because you had mentioned uh printing off your first script, and feeling that,
It's
yeah, well,
horrible.
I did. I printed off my first script, ran out of paper because it's 226 pages. So let's just get that let's get that other. That's how I started my craft. And then really, oh my God, this is like way too long, and so cut it down. So when I had a decent script, I started sending it out, and the industry was just brutal. It was harsh. And so as people like us that kind of grew up knowing how hard it is to find encouragement, to find a mentor, to find somebody to help us, or even find somebody to talk to about
Yeah.
this journey. We want to help other people because we don't
Yeah.
want people to go through that. And so it can be hard for us to find that kind of like that pruning moment or that self-care where you're like, hey, what am I doing for me? Because burnout in this field is very
Mhm.
real.
Like you'll look at something and you'll think, oh my God, like how am I ever going to make this happen? And sometimes you have to have just a little bit of blind faith and not like you put the blinders on. Don't ignore what you know. Don't ignore
Yeah.
reality. But sometimes you have to just keep going and not take no for an answer. Like just keep, not in a stalker weird way.
No.
But yeah, I mean, no means no. Like I'm not, but in this area of life, like because somebody rejects you,
Yeah.
like I said before, nobody died hearing the word no. So you
I
just
love
knock
it.
on another door. Like because all you
Yeah.
need is one yes.
Tell me the difference then, because you mentioned this in the book, and I love that you're like, I don't know, somehow subconsciously walking me through all the questions I have. So tell me the difference between hope and faith. Hope is about expectations and faith is about belief. And
Yeah.
I love that you quote this in the book because I've never seen that anywhere. I mean, I have behind me dozens of screenwriting books. I've written one, and I've
Yeah.
never thought about the difference between, a realistic expectation and believing in yourself.
Yeah. I mean, I think I wrote that at a time when a dear friend of mine from childhood died of ALS. And
Wow.
when I watched her, she just so blindly believed in me, just believed in me. And we would have conversations up until the point she couldn't speak anymore. Um, and she would just be like, you're gonna be fine. You're gonna do this, have faith,
Wow.
have faith. And and that's and that was just so powerful to me. Um, that even and also too, you talk about like those selfless giving people. I mean, here she was, losing her life,
Yeah.
watching it slip from her, and she was spending her time encouraging people to have faith in their own life, even
Oh.
though her life didn't turn out the way she had hoped, you know. And we do have these expectations for a life. And I think it's really important that we have enough faith in ourselves that we don't give up on our own expectations, that we just say, this is too hard.
Mhm.
There is nothing easy. The hardest thing I've ever done in my life is be a mother. And I would say the next hardest thing is trying to break into screenwriting.
Wow.
And because when I worked at Script Magazine, I also worked at Writer's Digest, and they have these pitching events, this pitch slam at Writer's Digest conference, which is awesome. I'm a huge pitching junkie. I love to pitch, especially those speed pitches.
That's
because it teaches you how to pitch, and it also tells you you're getting instant feedback from a professional, even though you're not going to, in screenwriting, you're not going to sell your script at one of these pitching events. This is literally for networking
practice,
and for practice. But at these novel events, you can sell your book at these events. Hollywood loves intellectual property.
Yeah.
So why not, if you've got a screenplay on your hard drive, no one's reading it, why don't you, if it would work as a book, why not adapt it as a book?
Yeah.
If you have a TV pilot, adapt it as a book, and then you can write a book series with the other episodes, and then somebody's going to be like, hey, I want to take your book series and turn it into a TV show.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to throw out all the nets.
I love it. Create your own IP and leverage it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it'll make you a better writer. I mean, if you love the craft of writing, writing a novel will definitely force you into a whole new mindset of writing. I mean, because it's a different beast. It takes a whole new skill set to properly write a novel. So, I mean, that's going to be a whole new journey and adventure.
But I also would say, just to tack onto that for a second, I also think that screenwriters specifically, you have such an advantage over somebody who's just starting to learn how to write novels, because you already know how to do a fast read. You know how to make the reader have to turn the page. You know that you end the scene making somebody have to turn to see what the next scene is going to be, and you can write cinematically. And people now, when they consume novels, they don't necessarily want an 800-page novel. They want sometimes they want a novel that they can read in a day.
Nice.
So that's what your script is. So just elaborate on it, and then you can break the rules. You can go inside people's heads. You can write about what people are thinking, and you might really love it.
No, I think that's fantastic advice. So again, you're leading me down my questionnaire because
I'm in your head, Geoffrey.
This is a little scary. All right, because my next question was developing your screenwriting hustle, which we've actually just dipped on, which is getting into, like you said, creating your own IP through a novel. But when people help you want to work twice as hard to make them feel it was worth it. And I think that is some amazing sage-like advice.
Yeah. I mean, I know when people ask me for help and I give them help, and then they just ignore what I said and tell me they're going to ignore what I said. And I thought, I'm not always right. Like, I don't have any problem with somebody saying, well, maybe you should try this way instead. Let's talk about it. But if they're just like, oh, well, so-and-so told me this, so I'm not going to do what you said because I'm just going to do this. And it's like, but you've been trying that and it's not working for you. So so if you're going to keep, then that's the definition of insanity. Like, if you're going to keep doing the same thing over and over again. So when I've worked with people, I remember the first time, unknown screenwriter on Twitter, Unk Screenwriter, he read one of my scripts, and I didn't ask him to read it. He just reached out to me and said, I want to read this script. So I was like, okay, great. So he reads the script, and then he comes back and tells me a bunch of stuff that's wrong with it. And it's just, some of it is stylistic, this was early on. And he goes, do you want me to fix it? And I said, no. How am I going to learn if you're going to fix it? I'm not going to learn that way. I need to learn. And so I learned and I fixed and I sent it back to him and I said, is this better? And he's like, you're the first person who's ever done that.
That's awesome.
Who's ever really wanted to learn. And so he kept mentoring me.
Aww.
And Same thing with Doug Richardson, who wrote Die Hard 2, Bad Boys Hostage. Same thing. He gave me notes. He asked to read the script. He gave me notes. I was like, thank you so much. I'm so grateful. I mean, come on, who wouldn't be? So I was in the process of a rewrite and I was taking notes from other people and I did the rewrite. And then he said to me, aren't you going to let me read the rewrite? And he's like, I want to see what you did with the notes. And
That's
I'm
awesome.
like, well, I wouldn't ask you to read it after you've already been so generous. And then he read it, loved the way I took notes, loved which ones I listened to, what I didn't listen to, what I did with his notes, the note behind the note, that kind of stuff. And then at that point he was like, I want to send this to Tom Schulman. And it's like, okay, Oscar winner of Dead Poets Society, if he would like to read my screenplay, that would be awesome. I think I was going to vomit all day,
That's
waiting
amazing.
for it. But then at one point I'm on the phone with the two of them breaking story. I mean, all because, of how you appreciate what the advice they're giving you, and you're not expecting something, you're not imposing upon them. You have to respect the people who want to help. Since 2009, a group of friends and I, Zoe Sanford, Jamie Livingston, Kim Garland, and I had started Script Chat back in 2009. I'm the only one left doing it, but because I can't give up the pay it forward. Like
awesome.
I know it takes a lot of time. I do it every Sunday. But I think it's so important that people have that sense of community that doesn't cost them anything.
Where can people find Script Chat? Where can people find you on Twitter?
Scriptchat.com has all the transcripts since 2009. On Twitter, I'm at GDVB, V as in Victor, B as in boy. And we also do Pipeline Writers chat on Friday nights from 5 Pacific time till whenever. And then Pipeline Writers is really for screenwriters. Pipeline Authors is for novelists. We do that chat Thursday nights, 5 to 7 Pacific time.
That's pretty amazing.
We're all over Twitter. It's like the writer's water cooler. It's such a great way to be connected and not feel alone, especially when you talk about balance.
Yeah.
When your family doesn't understand what you're trying to do. It's nice to have people who do understand.
I think everybody needs to take advantage of this. If you're really out there and helping people, I think it's absolutely beautiful. I want to thank you for being on this show. I really did enjoy the book, The Screenwriter's Mindset. It made
especially my therapy sessions.
I thought it was awesome. I really did. It was honest, and you can't ask for more than that. And the amount of vulnerability that you provide and allow people to peek inside of your mind. It's something that I try and do with my blog posts, because it's important for writers who are up and coming and learning the craft to see that other writers who have quote kind of made a mark within the industry are human, have their own struggles, have their own, imposter syndrome or whatever it is, or what you call it, pleaser vision. We all have our issues. And so it's important for them to see that as well, because I think it helps along their paths to realize they're not alone.
At pipelineartists.com, which is the editor-in-chief of that site, the thing that I love about that site, we just launched it last March, is that it literally is like the whole thing is like balls of steel. Like it's
awesome.
All of our writers are super honest about their experiences and what's happened. And I think that's how people learn. It's like you want to also feel like you can relate to them and relate to what you're reading. And because some of these people out there on social media who are advanced in their careers make it seem like if you just do this, you're gonna make it. And it's go back and remember what it was like for you to write that first crappy script. Like, like
that was a masterpiece. You don't even know.
So it's like, just be honest about that. Say like, yeah, I had to learn, I had to do this. And there's a lot of people out there who do that, who are super honest and really professional street editors who are really generous out there on social. But there are a few that just, aren't really honest enough, I think. And I think they're doing their followers a disservice.
I agree. I think that they're afraid to show the vulnerabilities because it hurts their brand as a writer or whatever.
But I would argue it doesn't hurt your brand.
Not at all. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share in your social media, where you can tag us at The Successful Screenwriter.